Hello again, it.Hope, and welcome to another video, and this one's going to be video game related. But it's actually something I've been thinking about for a while, even during these past few months. And that is, are mid-generation consoles a good idea? Now, for those that don't know what mid-generation game consoles are, it's usually a current game console, but it's a lot more powerful. But instead of going to the next generation, it's still the same one, but it's a lot more powerful. And obviously we are experiencing that currently with what Sony and Microsoft are doing and what Nintendo's been doing these past few years. Because obviously with Sony we have the PS4 Pro, and from Microsoft we have the Xbox One X, which isn't out yet, but will be out this year, and end of this year. And these are basically mid-generation consoles where it's obviously the same machine, but it's a lot more powerful, and it still plays everything that its base model can do, which is a good idea. But I just want to give you my thoughts about this, because usually there's a bit of a yes-no argument for this, where people think this is a good idea, and then there's people that think this is an absolutely awful idea. So I'll go with what I think, overall. Years ago, I think with the new 3DS, which I will be showing and stuff, I remember thinking it was kind of a bad idea. Because of the fact that it really didn't make sense. But then after a while I started to think, this is a good idea. I think even the DSi made me think this, which is basically a more powerful DS, but it obviously has a camera and stuff, which I've also shown. I would say my first, experience of mid-generation consoles was the DSi. Now the DSi is, as I just said, it's a more powerful DS, an upgraded DS, but it actually has a camera on it, on the an outer camera and an inner camera, and I quite think the DSi is a great idea. So there was a lot of great games for it made, which I think definitely showed the capabilities of what Nintendo made for it, including the DSi shop channel with the DSiWare content. And I quite liked that. I think that was a good thing. And it also gave you a good reason why to upgrade from either an original DS or a DS Lite. Because one thing that made this good is that you were not leaving your audience behind. Obviously you were if you didn't have a DSi, but if you were upgrading from an original DS or a DS Lite, you could bring all your DS games with you, which was a good thing. Now, obviously, the DSi was not backwards compatible with the Game Boy Advance, but it was fully compatible with the DS, which was a good thing. So you were not leaving your games behind, which was a nice thing. And that kind of helps your audience move on. Because if, someone owned a DSi and someone owned a DS, you could play the same game on there, which was a nice option. So if you had a DS Lite and a friend of yours had a DSi, you could play the same games, which is a nice thing. And that's what kind of helps one thing to move on with. Backwards compatibility or forwards compatibility, where the mid-generation console can play everything like the current console has. So any game that was made for the DS can be played on both the DSi and the DS, so you are not leaving your audience behind until, the DSi only games came out. But that kind of helped your audience move on with you. And I've always liked that with Nintendo. I think they've made mid-generation consoles a good thing to have, really. I think even, as Nintendo started it with the Game Boy Color, which is sort of the same thing, a mid-generation console. But when I was younger, I always used to count this as a new generation console because it had its own library of games, and it was backwards compatible, which was a good thing. So if you had a Game Boy, and you were interested in, with the Game Boy Color, you could bring all your games to it. Again, backwards compatibility. And obviously we've seen this with the new 3DS as well, which is, again, obviously a more powerful 3DS. It's not the next, it's not the successor, it's just the 3DS that's more powerful, and that's just the way it goes. And the one thing that's good about this is you can bring all your games with it. So obviously, you know, you have the new 3DS games, you have the 3DS games, as well as the DS games. And if you had a previous 3DS and you had a lot of digital content that you purchased, everything from the DSi to everything from the DSi could be transferred over to the 3DS. And if you're upgrading to a new 3DS, you could transfer everything over, which is a nice thing. It's a good bonus. Because again, it basically makes your audience think, okay, well, you know, they're not leaving us behind, you know, we can bring all of our content to this new device, and that's a good thing. That's why with the PS4 Pro, again, it is forward/backwards compatible. You know, any PlayStation 4 game, whether it's a disc-based or a digital release, can be played on a PS4 Pro, and you can play those games on the PlayStation 4 until that point in the far future where we get PS4 Pro only games, which will happen. Same with the Xbox One X. It's not the Xbox 2, if anything like that. It's still an Xbox One that's more powerful. You know what I mean? So any game that was made for Xbox One can be played on the Xbox One X, vice versa, which is a nice thing. But one thing that Sony has given you with the PS4 Pro is a transfer feature. So if you had a PlayStation 4, you can actually transfer everything over to the PS4 Pro, which is, again, a nice bonus, so you do not leave your audience behind. But if you never had a PlayStation 4, you can just go out and buy a PS4 Pro, because, again, there's no difference in the meantime. Same with the Xbox One X. And that's what I think kind of helps the consumers stay with you. Because even though you're letting the console last a lot longer, it helps your consumers stay with you, which I quite like. But I think there's a kind of a bad thing to it, I would say. The one thing that kind of scares a lot of people is that they are scared that they're going to get left behind. And I think this is why with the whole PlayStation Neo, Xbox Scorpio, you know, announcements from last year kind of scared a lot of people. Because it made a lot of people think, okay, well, will this have PS4 Pro 0.5 only games? Again, when it was, you know, when it was revealed like that. And that's what scared a lot of people. It really, really did. But the reason that Sony and Microsoft were doing this, which obviously became a reality, is because the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One were very underpowered when they first came out. You know, and basically after a year, or even near to 1 year, the hardware was extremely underpowered and ended up reaching its maximum, you know, amount of power, which has never ever been seen before. And that's what kind of killed a lot of these developers, and because they were reaching the maximum amount of power that you couldn't really get much out of it. And I think that's what scared a lot of people with which scared a lot of people with Scalebound, which was, you know, the Xbox One PC game. And people have always stated about that game that maybe it couldn't be fully made on the Xbox One and that they needed the more powerful hardware. And I still think that was Scalebound. It looked like a good game, but it's a shame it got cancelled, even though at one point I think Microsoft recently tried to get the trademark back for it. But I think with Scalebound, it definitely shows you that the power just isn't there for the old hardware. Thing is, that's just the way the world goes now with power and stuff. If you think about, like, with Apple, when they make the iPhone, they make one every year, and then they leave the older ones behind. That's just the way it goes. Like, for example, they're not going to support, you know, the iPhone 5S, is it? I don't know. I lose count, me. But they're not going to support the iPhone 5S and 5C for 5 years. You know, they want to keep the hardware going. You know what I mean? That's just the way it goes. I think it's like the last 5 iPhones, or even the last 6 iPhones, they've been discontinued because Apple does not support them, because the hardware just, it's old. You know, it's anemic. You don't need it anymore. That's just the way it goes with technology and stuff. Technology always advances. We never ever go back. We go forward, and that's just the hard truth about it. You know what I mean? It really, really is. You know, once we get the new stuff, we end up leaving the old stuff behind, and we end up saying goodbye to it. That's just the way it goes, really. But I think overall, my thoughts about it, I think it's a good idea. It helps the consumers, but it also gives you a reason why to stay on there. And as long as they're giving you great games, that's what helps you a lot. It really, really does. So yeah, you know, that's just my thoughts about it. I just want to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of your weekend anyway. And also, Happy New Month as well. So I want to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and look forward to my next video this Tuesday coming. So I just want to say, see you later. Bye.